Glory to the Father, all praises to him and his masculine Son, and the feminine energy of the Holy Spirit. The holy angels of the seraphim and the cherubim, guardians at the gate of the heavenly knowledge, from those who seek wisdom to do wickedness or to gain riches. Message to the black man and woman. Job 9, verse 24. And the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? The judges, your ancestors, the great kings, the great mystics, all their faces have been covered and their identities have been taken. Message to the Caucasian, the Gentiles, and the other nation. Jeremiah 16, verse 19. O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth and shall say, surely our father have inherited lies. Your fathers have covered the faces of our fathers and claimed their identity. The lie. All Negroes and Negro types were brought from Africa to other continents by the so-called transatlantic slave trade by the Caucasian. The Great Initiates by Edward Shore, Philadelphia 1922. Africa is the mother of the black race, which the Greeks call Ethiopian. Asia brought forth the yellow race, represented by the Chinese. The latest arrival, the white race, came from the forests of Europe. Now you gotta listen carefully, read carefully, and sometimes read in between the lines. He said Africa brought forth the black race. Asia brought forth the yellow race, the Chinese. Then it said, not that Europe brought forth the white race, but the white race came from the forest of Europe. All human varieties result from the blending and combination and degeneracy or selection of these four great races. In the former cycle, the red and black reigned successively in powerful civilizations which have left traces both in the Cyclopean and construction in the architecture of Mexico. Page 7. After the red race, the black race ruled the globe. So how are you carrying everybody from Africa? But in the cycle before this, before the European even came into history, the red race, then the black race ruled the entire globe. Mayans, Aztec, Incas, especially Olmec, all Negro types, same bloodline. The book, 500 Nations, look at that picture right there. Look at the king, brother with his dreads tied up. Now, that red race, is that the American Indian we know today? The southern continent, swallowed by the Great Deluge, the deluge was the sinking and rising of continents in the cycle before this, was the cradle of the primitive red race, which the American Indian are merely a remnant. The Indian you know today is just a remnant of the original red race. The natives that they have as the natives today, the American Indian, is not the original native of this land. The lie. The Negro was always uncivilized until the Caucasian brought civilization to them. The truth. After the root red race, the black race ruled the globe. The latest arrival, the white race, came from the forests of Europe. Their forests formed the salvation of the whites, for in them they could hide like wild beasts, ready to bound forth when the moment was propitious. Propitious meaning when it was right, when the moment was right, when they was good and ready. So they was sitting in the woods playing double dutch, waiting for you to mess up. The story is the Caucasian brought civilization to the whole globe. And this story ain't coming from me, and it ain't coming from a Negro. It's coming from a Caucasian. Edward Shore. So now that we know blacks ruled the globe, where was their home base? The truth. Chapter 2, Hermes. The black race, which succeeded the southern red race in the rule of the world, made its principal sanctuary in Upper Egypt. If this is true, why every time they make a depiction of the gods or the rulers of Egypt, they look like this? This movie's called Gods of Egypt. There's not one Negro in this whole damn thing. They have stolen our identity and covered up the faces of the judges of the past world. Now, since their sanctuary was in Egypt, the next question is, were the blacks Semitic? The truth. Among the Semites, where the intellectuality of the black race originally dominated, apart from the idolatry of the people, there is to be noticed a tendency to monotheism. So they say they brought civilization to the world, that's a lie. They say they brought monotheism to the world, one God, that's a lie. So basically, these blacks, these Semites were global, but they made their home in Egypt. If you study the history, when the Babylonians and different other nations came in, at one point the Israelites dispersed, leaving 2 tribes and the 10 tribes were scattered. We all know the story. If you don't, you gotta do that on your own. Now, where these other tribes went, that's where it gets a little bit muddy. Now, once the tribes separate, there's a book of Acts that describes Paul going into other nations and preaching the gospel. But once he starts to go into the European countries now, Acts abruptly ends. Acts ended. Acts chapter 28 verse 31. Acts 29 is completely missing. You have to actually go look up the Sanini manuscript to get the rest of it. Now I'm going to read from the missing chapter of Acts. Acts 29, verse 2. For he had heard in Phoenicia that a certain of the children of Israel, about the time of the Assyrian captivity, had escaped by sea to the far off isles, as spoken by the prophet, and called by the Romans Britain, aka the British Isle. Transatlantic slave trade ain't looking too good right now. It also says when he reached the British Isles, he lodged in the house of a Hebrew. Also, and it came to pass that certain of the Druids came unto Paul privately, and showed their rites and ceremonies. They were descended from the Jews which escaped from bondage in the land of Egypt. And the apostle believed these things, and he gave them the kiss of peace. All right, so let me put the story together. Blacks, Semitics, ruled the globe. They made their sanctuary in Egypt. Babylonians came in, they disbanded. They went all four corners of the earth. Paul is telling you about the interaction he had with some of them that was in Europe. By their rites and ceremonies, he knew that they were Jews or Hebrew. Then, the new story now is that they were also the Druids, which means they were probably also the Celts. Well, we'll prove that later. Okay, so now we got Druids and Celts. Who are they and what did they look like? The lie. This is how they say they used to look. But how do they really look? The truth. Ancient and modern Britons, 1884. Physically, they were swarthy meaning dark, of color and had curly hair, and were bearded like goats. So the Druids and the Druidists had colleagues in an island near the coast of Brittany who professed a knowledge of the future. They could tell the future, they were mystic. Who worshipped the gods and were dark-skinned, curly-haired Iberians. So now we know. Also, the name that they give that tribe, Iberians, were also dark-skinned people. The Iberians, styled as swarthy meaning dark, the dark Highlanders, and the black Celts to the west of Shannon, assumed to be descendants of the Iberian. Intermixture of the fairer races during the last 2,000 years, the stock must now be lighter skinned than then, and representatives of the first century must have been actually black Negroes. Boston Celtics, Negro. Bruin, Negro. Druids, Negro. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Negro. Damn. Now, if you cross-reference the two books, Edward Shore's book now says, from the blacks they being the Caucasian, learned two important things: casting of metals, sacred writings, and the art of fixing certain ideas by the means of mysterious and hieroglyphic signs on the skins of beasts, stones, barks of ash. Thus were discovered the ruins of the Celts. Again, so who taught who? Who brought civilization to who? That's the question. And this is just part one. I'm coming with part two.